Dr. Stephen Joy George, who's the president of Asian Christian Academy of India, has been the driving force behind the vision of ACA. With a PhD in higher education, a graduate degree in chemical engineering, and a postgraduate degree in theological studies, he's a visionary educationist and leader. Dr. George has played a key role in bringing ACCASI to life, and we are excited to hear from him about how this unique culinary institute came to be. With his insight and experience, we can gain a better understanding of the importance of ACCASI and the value it brings to our community. So let's put our hands together and give a warm welcome to Dr. Stephen Joy George.
Well, a special welcome to our chief guest, Chef Kaushik, our guest of honor, Chef Vijay Bhaskar, our foreign dignitaries, Tom Abernathy and Dr. Amir Kaner, and our various distinguished guests and our attendees. The vision for ACCASI is very much tied to our understanding of food, and food is very much connected to who we are as human beings. It's connected to our culture. It's connected to our community. It's connected to our activities in our life. Mahatma Gandhi said about farming, he said, to forget how to dig the earth and tend the soil is to forget ourselves. There's an organic connection that we have with the earth that God has created us and the food that we have. Now, because of we live in an industrialized world, we may have forgotten that connection. We see things prepackaged and they come to our table, but we forget the story, we forget what goes behind it. And that story is very important to understand. It's a very important story even as part of the Christian story, the story of the Bible. In fact, the Bible begins with food and ends with food. It begins with the story of how food became the test for man and brought about the sin that came into the world. But it ends with a great feast, the marriage supper of the Lamb, where we are now reunited, and there's a culmination, and we go from creation to new creation. Food is part of our faith as well. We, even in our Christian faith, as part of the table, the Lord's table, we have the bread, the wine, which symbolizes the body, the blood of Christ. The food is part of fellowship, part of community. There's more and more of an understanding of this importance, even as we've moved into a very industrialized, now post-industrialized world, to understand how food affects our health, how it affects our bodies. So you have hundreds and thousands of opinions and TikTok videos explaining what food is good and what food is not so good. Sometimes there's a lot of confusion more than clarity. But there's a need for our culinary experts also to go deeper into that connection of where we get our food and how it begins from the soil to the table. One of the things that we look at ACA is we're interested in holistic development. We see things as not just as a matter of information, but education is developing the whole human being. And holistic education means intersecting with various disciplines in life. In fact, the new education policy of the government now is asking colleges to now bring in more disciplines to connect, not to just be focused on one discipline. Now, why is that? Well, a little bit of my own story. I remember I did my degree in chemical engineering. I did degrees in theology, linguistics, and education. And I remember when I was in the US doing my degree in chemical engineering, I remember they required us to take classes in history and government and economics. I said, I don't remember all my friends in India studying any of these things. I think this is all a waste of time. But when I started working, I realized that only 5% of my work was really hardcore engineering. 95% are what I call irregular problems. Problems deal with people, management, things that you can't really learn in a textbook. but you have to bring in a multiple set of skills, knowledge to look at a problem and ask the question, how can I be of help? And even in a program like this, we are not just looking at the culinary skills and not just even the agricultural skills. We're looking at how do we inculcate business leaders, entrepreneurs, thinkers, and leaders. So our desire, as we talked about, is really to cultivate an entrepreneur. Someone who's going to go out and see, where can I add value? Where can I create something? Where can I solve a problem? And where can I use my God-given creativity for something that can serve society? So it's important, even as we look at a culinary school that is very vocationally focused, that's very much oriented to helping that graduate enter into the field. But it's also looking at him as somebody who's going to be looking 5, 10 years down the line, who can be someone who is now seeing the entire vision and now thinking, where can I create value? Where can I do something that is different? And really, that's what ACCASI is very much about. How do we cultivate the next generation of leaders and thinkers and creative minds who can now apply this to the area of food, a food which is so central, not just to our cultures, to our communities, but to our very humanity and our bodies themselves. Thank you very much for joining us today.